Even so I spake, and he straightway answered me, and said, Nay, speak not comfortably to me of death, O great Odysseus. Rather I would live on ground as the hireling of another, with a landless man who had no great livelihood, than bear sway among all the dead that be departed. But come, tell me tidings of that lordly son of mine. Did he follow to the war to be a leader or not? And tell me of noble Peleus, if thou hast heard aught. Is he yet held in worship among the Myrmidons? Or do they dishonor him from Hellas to Phthia? For that old age binds him hand and foot. For I am no longer his champion under the sun, so mighty a man as once I was, when in wide Troy I slew the best of the host, and scoured the Argives. Ah, could I but come for an hour to my father's house, as then I was, so I would make my might and hands invincible, to be hateful to many and one of those who do him despite, and keep him from his honor. Even so he spake, and I answered him, saying, As for noble Peleus, verily I have heard naught of him, but concerning thy dear son, Neoptolemus, I will tell thee all the truth, according to thy word. It was I that led him up out of the Skyros, in my good hollow ship, in the wake of the goodly grieved Achaeans. Now oft as we took counsel around Troy town, he was ever the first to speak, and no word missed the mark. The godlike Nestor and I alone surpassed him. But whensoever we Achaeans did battle on the plain of Troy, he never tarried behind in the throng or the press of men, but ran out far before us all, yielding to none in that might of his. And many men he slew in warfare dread, but I could not tell of all or name their names, even all the host he slew in scurrying the Argives. But how he smote with the sword that son of Telephus, the hero Eurypylus, and many Ceteians of his company were slain around him, by reason of a woman's bribe. He truly was the comeliest man that I ever saw, next to goodly Memnon. And again when we, the best of the Argives, were about to go down into the horse which Epeus wrought, and the charge of all was lain on me, both to open the door of our good ambush, and to shut the same, then did the other princes and counselors of the Danaans wipe away the tears, and the limbs of each one trembled beneath him. But never once did I see thy son's fair face wax pale, nor did he wipe the tears from his cheeks. But he besought me often to let him go forth from the horse, and kept handling his sword hilt, and his heavy bronze-shod spear, and he was set on mischief against the Trojans. But after we sacked the steep city of Priam, he embarked unscathed with his share of the spoil, and with a noble prize. He was not smitten with the sharp spear, and got no wound in close fight. And many such chances there be in war, for Ares rageth confusedly. All right, we are continuing our conversation with Achilles, or the shade of Achilles, asking about his sons, asking about what has happened post-war. Odysseus yesterday saying that Achilles was honored and going to have his name rung out through all of time. And Achilles rejects this, saying he would rather occupy the lowest and most precarious position among the living than possess the highest authority among the dead. Being a fallen hero is not all it's cracked up to be, it seems. But in turning to his son, seeming to accept his situation and kind of inquiring about his legacy at this point, and Odysseus talks about, well, I guess both Peleus, who we've mentioned already in this chapter, being Achilles' father. Odysseus has no information on him, but Achilles' son is someone that Odysseus personally worked with in the war, being part of the Trojan horse and the sacking of Troy. He has nothing but praise to give Achilles about his son. What I find interesting, and as I said before, we'll go deeper into Achilles much later if we ever do the Iliad or do a separate series on Achilles. His question here, or let me rephrase that, his comment here about rather being living under precarious circumstances than in honor among the dead is quite poignant considering in a lot of myths, and some of these written after the Odyssey and the Iliad, have Achilles being given a choice, I think by his mother early on, as to whether or not he wants to choose the path of glory or choose the path of long age. It's a fascinating story. His mother has a prophecy and wasn't going to tell him, but then does. And he then chooses to go fight at Troy, where his name will forever ring among the halls of men, as opposed to staying at home, I think, on a farm and living to a long old age. But after his grandchildren pass away, no one will ever remember him. It's a lot more nuanced than that. But the fact that he has made the choice to go to Troy, knowing that his name will ring in infamy forever, maybe not infamy, but ring in the songs and poems for years to come. The fact that he died and fulfilled the prophecy, he is now saying, I somewhat regret it. I wish that I was living a farmer's life. And what do we think about Odysseus here as well? This chapter is the first time that we're seeing him address people that he fought with. I mean, we've seen him amongst his company throughout this story so far, and then Elpenor at the beginning of this book. But with Agamemnon and Achilles, he's able to kind of speak at a level or about things that he isn't with other people. And I think it brings out a little bit different stuff out of him, because here he has the opportunity to, I don't know, not necessarily lie to Achilles, but invent some sort of soft around the edges story about Peleus. But he's honest when he says that he doesn't have any information and tells him so. Now, he might be, blowing a little bit of smoke when talking about Achilles' son, but I think it's a way of honoring the soldiers and men that he fought with, especially in this land of the dead, in which so many of them now surround him. There's the idea of loyalty and honor amongst soldiers that is much different than family and home that the story has been so much about up until now. The last thing I'll say here is Homer, the collective of Homer, um, is doing something very subtle that I'm starting to appreciate, which is that whether it's Agamemnon, whether it's Odysseus's mother, whether it's Achilles here, they're all asking about family. And family is so much attached to the idea of home that this is an interesting way to kind of weave the pattern of what Odysseus is missing. Achilles is asking about his son. Odysseus has a son that he hasn't seen since he was an infant that he's trying to get back to. Agamemnon is talking about his wife, where Odysseus is trying to get back to Penelope after all these years. So it's a really sophisticated way of subconsciously putting in our minds the things that Odysseus is missing and striving to get home for. I'm curious what we will end with as we start to wrap up this chapter. We only have 3 episodes left. So let's find out by joining me here tomorrow. Until then, okay, goodbye. Odyssey is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. The show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Odyssey, written by Homer. Theme song by Neuroflow. You can support this show and other shows like it by going to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.